Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Friday, the 29th day of March, 2024. It is Good Friday. So we have come through the season of Lent, entering the Triduum last night, the sacred 3 days, and now our second day of the Triduum, Good Friday, remembering the death of Christ on the cross. Again, today is the day in which, according to ancient tradition, also there was only a service to remember Jesus' passing and his death on the cross. There's not supposed to be a Eucharist. There's not supposed to be Holy Communion. But what happens is that in the Middle Ages, it begins to be distributed from the reserve that was left after the Mass of the Lord's Supper. Again, that reserve was only for those who either could not have attended the Mass of the Lord's Supper or who were sick and dying and needed viaticum. So when they first started doing this, there was always an issue with there not being enough communion that was consecrated because there wasn't supposed to be. So now we have communion on this day. It should be a day, though, of absence. We talk about real presence all the time, but today's the day in which we contemplate real absence. The fact that our God has died. As contradictory as that seems, as absurd as that seems, as unbelievable and unreal as that seems, again, according to our notions of gods, goddesses, divinity, what have you, that is always a reality or a truth that is undying, that is eternal. And yet, this God of ours, again, to show us once again how we are misled sometimes in our own understandings of who and what God is, demonstrates the power and the depths of what this God that calls us into relationship, that calls us into friendship, that calls us into life is really truly about. This is, again, a God who will go to great lengths to do miraculous things, a God who is exaggerative in expressions of love and care and compassion, a God who does not abandon, a God who does not give up, a God who does not stop in promising more and more of the wonder and beauty in our lives as human beings. This is the God who has created us. This is the God who has claimed us. This is the God, yes, who passes from this life, but then just does not cease to exist. It is a God who comes to understand every dimension and depth of the human experience, of its joys, of its sorrows, of its triumphs, of its despairs, of its wonder and beauty, and also of its ugliness. And yet this God encompasses all of this, and through the power of love demonstrates, again, how triumphant love is. Celebrating the power and the triumph of God's love is what we do on this day. Christ is not going to the cross in place of us because God needs some kind of death sacrifice. This is unbelievable, and it is ridiculous and absurd and horrific. Again, it is something that happens because we refuse at times to believe that this is who our God is. And when our God is not created in our image, and when we want God to do what we do, we unfortunately can rebel in ways that are sad and tragic and terrible. It is constantly repeating itself again and again in our relationships in this world. But yet God still triumphs. God still triumphs in the end and always. And we've got to be people who remember that, because if we don't, then the despair of the world gets the upper hand. Then sin and darkness and death become that which rule our lives. And that is not good for us. And that is not good for our future, our destiny. And that is very problematic when it comes to understanding the power and wonder of God in our lives. We are people of life. And this Jesus, who dies on this day, dies to demonstrate the power and depth of love and how powerfully triumphant love is over all those things that make us less than who and what we are. A blessed Good Friday, St. Francis and people of God, a blessed Triduum. May the Lord give you his peace.